Let me just make this clear. Europe's farmers are not protesting because they hate the future. They are protesting because they can see it coming before the rest of us do. While cities argue about politics online, while commentators turn everything into teams and slogans, while policymakers meet in climate summits and trade forums, the people who actually grow Europe's food are watching their margins collapse, their rules multiply, and their role slowly disappear. They are realising something that's hard to unsee once you see it. They are no longer being prepared for the future. They are being phased out of it across France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain, Italy, Greece, Ireland, and beyond. Farmers are driving tractors into cities not to intimidate anyone, but to force visibility. Because in modern society, invisibility is the same as disposability. Most people don't think about farmers until food prices rise. They don't think about soil health until floods happen. They don't think about supply chains until shelves go empty. And they rarely think about the people who carry all of that risk quietly, year after year. Yet farmers are expected to carry climate responsibility, food security, animal welfare, land management, biodiversity protection, rural employment, and national resilience, all while being treated as a profession that needs to adapt faster, earn less, and complain less. That contradiction is the heart of these protests. For years now, European agriculture has been reshaped through the Common Agriculture Policy. Farmers must meet environmental rules, biodiversity targets, land use restrictions, chemical reduction goals, and complex reporting standards to qualify. On paper it sounds reasonable. In reality, it feels like trying to survive while someone keeps changing the rules of survival. Large industrial farms can afford consultants, compliance officers, and lawyers. Small family farms cannot. So the system quietly rewards scale while punishing independence. At the same time, costs rise in ways farmers cannot control. Fuel costs more, fertilizer costs more, machinery parts cost more, electricity costs more, insurance costs more. Interest rates rise. Weather becomes more unpredictable. Disease spreads faster. And yet supermarket chains still demand stable, low prices, because consumers are also under pressure. So the farmer becomes the shock absorber of the entire system. Every pressure lands on them first. Then trade policy enters. The European Union pushes free trade agreements. Farmers call it unfair competition. European farmers are held to some of the highest environmental and welfare standards in the world. While being asked to compete with imports produced under very different rules and costs, they are told to raise standards while becoming cheaper. They are told to be cleaner while becoming less competitive. They are told to survive while being undercut. That is not transition, that is contradiction. Governments respond with temporary relief packages, fuel rebates, tax adjustments, and promises of simplification. Farmers don't feel supported, they feel postponed. Every year becomes a waiting room. Wait for reform, wait for support, wait for review, wait for consultation. But debt does not wait. Weather does not wait. The direction is fewer farmers, larger farms, more imports, more consolidation, less independence, not because anyone openly says it, but because every policy step quietly points there. And this is where Australia needs to pay attention, because the same pressure lines are forming here. Australian farmers are not blocking capitals with tractors yet, but the frustration is real. Climate rules, water restrictions, land use, planning changes, renewable infrastructure projects, live export bans, animal welfare policies, and trade pressures all stack onto the same group of people. Australian farmers are told to feed the nation, protect the land, cut emissions, accept transmission lines across their properties, compete in global markets, absorb rising costs, and still deliver affordable food. They are told to sacrifice in the name of the future, while being offered very little certainty inside it. The live sheep export restrictions hit Western Australia farmers directly, removing a market they had built livelihoods around. Water reforms in the Murray-Darling Basin reshaped entire communities. Transmission lines for renewable energy projects cut through farmland, with landholders feeling they had no real negotiating power. Machinery repairs became more expensive because of manufacturer restrictions. Climate policies were written in cities, but implemented in paddocks. And when farmers pushed back, they were often framed as resistant to progress, instead of as people asking to survive it. Australia likes to think it is different from Europe, less regulated, more practical, more balanced, but the pattern is familiar. Policy ambition rises faster than farm reality. Urban expectations rise faster than rural support. And farmers are once again asked to carry the emotional, economic, and environmental burden of decisions they did not design. So when European farmers protest, Australians should not see a foreign problem. They should see a preview, because global food policy is becoming centralised, standardised, and financialised. And in that process, local producers everywhere start to look less like partners and more like obstacles. And what does that mean for the future? It means farming risks becoming a managed industry instead of a living profession. It means rural communities shrink. Young people stop inheriting farms because the risk outweighs the reward. Land becomes an asset instead of a livelihood. Food becomes a financial product instead of a foundation. And that matters more than most people realise. Food is not technology. You cannot innovate soil overnight. You cannot automate weather. You cannot outsource stewardship with consequences. You cannot replace generational knowledge with policy templates. The future of farming is not just about carbon. It is about continuity. Now in France, where these protests have been more visible, political tension has grown. Roads blocked, cities surrounded, pressure on government. The reason the story spread matters more than whether it was accurate. People can feel instability even when they don't know the details. Macron publicly opposed the Mercosur deal while operating inside an EU structure that continues pushing it forward. He is trapped between farmers who feel betrayed and institutions that demand consistency. That same tension exists in Australia. Federal governments promise rural protection, while trade frameworks prioritise market access. Climate urgency demands speed, while farming survival demands patience. Urban politics rewards symbolism, while rural policy demands precision. Farmers are stuck in the middle of every contradiction. So when farmers protest, they are not protesting one law. They are protesting the feeling that they no longer belong in the future they are supposed to build. And here is the part most people don't want to admit. If farmers lose, society does not win. When small farms disappear, corporations fill the gap. When corporations control food, resilience declines. When resilience declines, dependence increases. When dependence increases, prices rise. And when prices rise, social stability weakens. Food has always been political. Supermarkets just made it feel invisible. These protests are not nostalgia, they are warning. A warning that sustainability without farmers is fantasy. A warning that policy without reality collapses. A warning that societies that erase their producers eventually lose control of what they consume. Farmers are not asking for immunity from change. They are asking for dignity within it. They are asking for fairness in competition. They are asking for shared responsibility in transition. They are asking not to be quietly erased. And the hardest truth of all is that most people will not care until it affects them directly. Because modern society celebrates comfort and punishes inconvenience. We praise consumption and forget production. But every civilization that lost respect for its food producers paid for it later. And Europe is not immune to history. Australia is not immune either. These tractors are not symbols of rebellion. They are symbols of presence. They are saying we are still here, in a system that is slowly designing a future without them. And the future will not ask whether we agreed with the protests. It will only ask whether we listened. If you made it this far, I appreciate you for actually sitting with a difficult conversation instead of scrolling past it. These are the kinds of topics that don't trend well, but they matter more than most of what does. If you agree with any part of this, or even if you disagree but think the conversation is worth having, leave a comment. I actually read them. Different perspectives don't weaken discussion, they strengthen it. If you want more long-form, honest conversations like this, you can support the channel by liking the video. It tells the algorithm this isn't just noise. And if you are tired of everything being reduced to outrage, teams and slogans, you might want to subscribe. I'm not here to sell you certainty. I'm here to explore the uncomfortable middle that most people avoid. No pressure, no hype, just conversation. I'll see you in the next one. Quick heads up before we keep going. I've got a Facebook page where I post a lot more of this stuff. It's not a business page, it's not monetized, and it's not a brand. It's a non-profit page. I run it purely because I think these conversations actually matter. No sponsors, no ads, no fake positivity, just raw clips, thoughts, arguments, humour, and uncomfortable topics people avoid. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not pushing an agenda. It's just a place for people who still like thinking, questioning, disagreeing, and laughing without everything being cleaned up for algorithms. If you agree with me, disagree with me, or just want somewhere that isn't filtered to death, the link's there. You'll usually see stuff there before it ever hits YouTube. Alright, back to the video. Dead Island 3 and Cyberpunk 2 has officially entered pre-production and is in development. Jackass 5 will release in theaters June 2026. Lionsgate has publicly teased and confirmed a new Saw game project as part of its push into high-end AAA video games. In other news, I've got a new mic now, grabbed a blue snowball, so hopefully the audio's way better this time. And I really appreciate the feedback in the comments. That actually helps more than you think. If you like the content, support the channel, share your thoughts, and let's grow this thing together and start changing the narrative. This is Australian Evolutionary Movement, not the Australian keep everything exactly the same movement. I'm not loyal to a duopoly government. I'm not blind to how easily systems can be manipulated. And I'm not comfortable living in a world where corporations quietly have more influence than voters. I believe in equal opportunity and fair distribution, but not the kind that kills ambition or replaces responsibility with dependency. I don't want socialism, and I don't want corporate feudism either. I want a system that actually evolves. AI shouldn't run society, it should clean it up. It should handle the boring, messy, inefficient parts so humans can focus on judgment, creativity, and responsibility. Its job isn't to control people, it's to make the system harder to corrupt. Not perfect, not utopian, just better than pretending 20th century systems still work in a 21st century world. Because progress doesn't come from loyalty to tradition. It comes from having the courage to upgrade it. Now back to the video. Most people who think they hate war are the same quietly helping to make it inevitable. Not because they are evil, but because they are human. And humans don't choose war with hatred. We choose it with certainty. Let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. When the world goes to war, it won't be because of one leader. It won't be because of one country. It won't even be because of one ideology. It will be because ordinary people stop tolerating uncertainty. We love pretending we are smarter than history, that we see through propaganda, that we'd never fall for the same mistakes, that we are more educated, more aware, more evolved. But history doesn't care how advanced our phones are. History only measures behaviour, and our behaviour hasn't changed. We still divide into tribes, worship uncertainty, punish doubt. We still reward loyalty over honesty. We just do it online now. Let's be real. On one side, you've got conservatives, MAGA supporters, boomers, nationalists, people who fear decline more than they fear conflict, people who confuse strength with safety, people who grew up in dominance and now feel it's slipping away. And decline feels like theft, so they cling to leaders who promise restoration, not peace, not cooperation, restoration. Make us great again isn't just nostalgia, it's a refusal to accept time. But here's what nobody says out loud. That instinct is human. Every empire reacts this way. Rome did it, Britain did it, every dominant power does it. Because letting go of superiority feels like dying. And fear doesn't create wisdom. Fear creates aggression. But then we look at the other side and pretend it's different. Modern progressive culture believes intention guarantees correctness. That compassion automatically equals competence. That questioning policy is the same as attacking humanity. And this too is human. Because moral superiority feels safer than uncertainty. It feels good to believe you are on the right side of history before history finishes writing. It feels good to defend ideas that sound kind, even when they cause harm. It feels good to be righteous, without being responsible. So the left becomes blind to its failures, the same way the right is blind to theirs. Different language, same psychology. One side worships strength, the other worships virtue. Neither worships humility, and humility is the only thing that has ever stopped wars. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. The problem isn't left or right. The problem is that humans under pressure stop thinking and start belonging. We stop asking, is this true? And start asking, is this mine? We stop asking, is this right? And start asking, Is this my side doing it? And once loyalty replaces truth, war becomes a matter of time. The media doesn't create this, it feeds it. Fear sells, rage sells, division sells. Nuance doesn't trend, humility doesn't go viral, doubt doesn't get shared. So we train to hate each other while believing we are informed. We are not informed. We are emotionally managed, and we like it. Because anger feels powerful, because certainty feels safe, because belonging feels better than thinking alone. And here's the scariest part. We don't experience war anymore. We consume it, we watch it, we debate it, we meme it, we argue about it like sport. We don't smell smoke. We don't hear buildings collapse. We don't bury children. So war becomes theoretical, and theoretical suffering is easy to justify. You can support destruction when you never have to witness it. Every generation believes war is something that happens to other people, until it isn't. Every generation believes it's morally superior. Every generation believes it sees through propaganda, and that it's different. And every generation proves it isn't. We haven't evolved emotionally, we've just upgraded our tools. Our fear is the same, our pride is the same, our tribal instincts are the same. We still want to identify more than truth. War doesn't begin with hatred, it begins with identity. Because once someone becomes a category instead of a person, you no longer feel responsible for their suffering. And once they are an enemy, anything becomes justifiable. And if you think this only lives in theory, look at what happened in Germany. Not in some distant war zone, not in a failed state, not in history, in Berlin. In the middle of winter, radical activists sabotaged critical power infrastructure, high voltage cables, one of the arteries that kept parts of the city alive. 45,000 homes went dark. Thousands of businesses shut down. Heating failed. Communications failed. People sat in freezing apartments while politicians argued over definitions. The group responsible didn't describe it as an attack on people. They described it as an attack on a system. They framed it as moral, necessary, justified. They believed they were on the right side of history. And that's the part that should terrify you. Because no one involved thought they were doing evil. They thought they were resisting it. But the elderly still sat in the cold, hospitals still scrambled, families still suffered, children still went to bed in darkness. And suddenly, ideology stopped being a debate and became a lived experience. This is what happens when certainty replaces humility. This is what happens when belief replaces responsibility. This is what happens when people convince themselves that harm is acceptable as long as it's aimed at the right target. The infrastructure didn't feel guilty. The power grid didn't vote. The cables didn't choose sides. But the people affected did. And they paid the price for someone else's certainty. Righteousness over consequence. This was exactly what I've been talking about. Because once you convince yourself that your cause is pure, you stop seeing collateral damage as human. You start seeing it as necessary, and this is how every conflict begins. Not with hatred, with justification. Not with cruelty, with conviction. Not with monsters, with people who are absolutely sure they are correct. And the most dangerous sentence in human history has never been, "I hate you." It has always been, "I'm right." Because the moment you are certain enough, anything becomes permissible. Blackouts, borders, bombs, bodies, all become arguments, abstractions, and someone else's problem. Until one day, they aren't. So when the world finally goes to war, the blame won't belong to one leader. It will belong to a pattern where humans choose certainty over humility, where they choose loyalty over truth, and identity over responsibility. And the hardest truth of all, none of us are immune. Not you, not me, not the people who agree with this, not the people who hate it. We are all capable of becoming what we condemn. That's why this matters. Not to accuse, but to remember. Because war doesn't begin with enemies. It begins with people who forget they are human first. If this made you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. If it made you defensive, that's a human sign. If it made you think, then maybe we still have time. And if you feel politically homeless after hearing this, you are not broken. You are just paying attention. If you want conversations that don't belong to either side, subscribe. If you don't agree with me, comment. If you do agree, share it. Because silence is the one thing history always punishes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.